back live with Andrew Bolt with the Bolt Report.
2 months ago, Woolworths announced it was banning free plastic shopping bags. And Woolworths claimed that shoppers were actually demanding this ban, even though they'd, confusingly, happily used billions of them each year.
We're a customer-led business, so we did a lot of focus on our customers and what matters to them.
And then when Coles said that it too would ban these very handy bags that its customers apparently wanted in their billions, it too claimed that no, its customers really wanted them to ban them. They wanted to make this sacrifice for the planet. In fact, it said in a statement, our announcement followed several months of consultation with our customers and environmental groups. But again, what did customers... were they actually consulted? I mean, because right now, Coles is facing such a revolt against this ban that Coles has been forced to say it will keep handing out its much thicker reusable bags for free and indefinitely until shoppers got used to the change. Joining me is the panel, former Queensland Premier Campbell Newman, now Rita Panahi, Sky News host, a colleague and a columnist and tweeter with the Herald Sun. Rita, this... How could they possibly have consulted with customers when the customers clearly are in such a revolt that they have to drop the ban, or at least Coles is?
Oh, it has been such an absolute dumpster fire, this idiotic policy, and you could see it coming from a million miles away. We all said it, well, not all of us, some of us said it, because, one, these plastic bags were never single-use. People reuse them. It was always a lie. Absolutely. Australians don't dump their plastic bags in waterways. It's not something we do. It's actually doesn't add much to the pollution in Australia at all. In fact, it accounts for 1% of litter, plastic bags and plastics. So, and we know that the terrible problem we've got with plastics in the world's oceans is predominantly from 5 countries. Australia isn't one of them. In fact, Australia
all in China or in Africa. And so I don't quite understand it either, Campbell, how a ban on plastic bags in Alice Springs and Broken Hill and Mount Isa and Albury-Wodonga and Bendigo and Ballarat...
Andrew,
how a ban of those is going to stop the Chinese from throwing plastic bags in the Yangtze?
Andrew, you didn't get the memo. Listen, my theory is that the corporate affairs sort of, comms sort of people in these large organisations have got the usual sort of suspects that we now have in political staff offices around the country, and it just infects everyone. So they sort of sit there having their latte down in, St Kilda somewhere and so, well, look, this is great. Everyone wants it. And we'll do a poll around the people. Right, yeah, all our mates, everyone at the tables around us, we're going to ban the plastic bags. I mean, that's the mentality here, Andrew. The sad thing in Queensland is both the government and the LNP opposition, the Labor government LNP opposition, actually work together to ban them outright. So I don't know how it's all going to play out up here. But you know what? I can tell you now, people aren't happy here either. But perhaps the government's going to have a problem. We'll see.
Well, funny on that one, Campbell reminds me of something he said there, Rita. When that clip I showed of the Woolworths boss saying we've consulted with our customers just before the customers gave them a king hit for taking away their bans, at that press conference to announce this wonderful ban was Environment Minister Josh Frydenberg. He was giving speeches and posing with the bags. Have you seen Josh at a supermarket lately saying, "No, please give this ban a chance," or has he gone missing?
When you see coalition governments and oppositions behaving just like Labor, being on a unity ticket with this sort of idiocy, you really wonder what's the point. And I've got to say, they are going to be giving away these bags now indefinitely, but it's not the thin bags that would disintegrate in waste at dumps. These are the thick bags, which I think are going to be here long after I'm dead. They are thick, Andrew. They are thick.
Well, they take much more energy to use, which means much more global warming gases. So the whole thing is a catastrophe. But the point here is, Campbell, I'm going to take you up on something you said, though, about how they arrived at this ban. Like they just made up some ponytails in an office, having talked to Emma Watson or whatever. I think also it's based on the kind of surveys that explain, oh no, the public really is for global warming policies, really for it, and then are mutinous, mad as hell when their power bills naturally go up. I think people answer these polls feeling sanctimonious or embarrassed to say, no, we really don't want to pay for this.
Yeah, look, I think it's a really interesting thing that someone probably needs to do some serious work and research on. But it's like Australians actually don't seem to have made the connection between they were told they had to sort of have renewables, their power bills went up. They were told that you couldn't build dams and desal plants were the way to go, and you had to save water. By the way, your water bill is going to go up. They were told by the Labor state government here in Queensland that we've got to have a waste levy, so that's now filtering through the economy with an extra cost impost. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And suddenly everyone goes, gee, I'm going backwards. My cost of living's gone through the roof. Well, guess what? There have been plenty of reports that have shown the biggest increase in costs are ones delivered by government, and particularly, I reckon, by state governments and local governments hitting people's hip pockets. Rates, for example, council rates, because all this stuff, all this virtue signalling ultimately has to be paid for. Now, if people were told up front it's going to cost you more, that'd be the right way to do it. But I think...
Oh, well, look, Campbell, I'd take you up on an even bigger issue. If people had been told 30 years ago, hey, listen, there's a really high immigration rate and a refugee program, well, you're going to get a little bit more crime. Your cities are going to be really, really full. Your house prices, well, your kids won't be able to afford them. But listen, it's a great idea. What do you reckon? I think a lot of people have said, that's not a deal I'm signing up for. But you're never told the price. Rita, I want you to explain this. Malcolm Turnbull was at a meeting with a very small environment group called the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, and this foundation got offered nearly $500 million of taxpayers' money, $444 million to be exact, that they didn't ask for, and there was no competitive tender. Now, this money, nearly $500 million, was given to a foundation that at the time had just 6 employees, and in 20 years of really trying hard, that managed to raise $90 million for reef research. $90 million in 20 years, and suddenly the Prime Minister gives them nearly $500 million, just like that. Now, this came at a private meeting between the Prime Minister, the Environment Minister, Josh Frydenberg, and the Foundation's chair. Does this process I described to you sound like government business as usual, or something that you think, that doesn't sound quite right to me?
No, the optics of this are rotten. I don't know how this can be explained adequately. I mean, I should be lobbying for a lunch with Malcolm and Josh if I could walk away with a $500 million cheque that I didn't even ask for.
Maybe you signed the wrong bill. He was just sort of really good lunch and he thought it was the dinner cheque.
I just don't see how that can happen. That is the sort of thing that you'd expect from dodgy Banana Republic type outfits where, you know, there's no tender process, the transparency really isn't what it should be. And it just looks terrible. I mean, maybe they can justify... Good lunch. I don't know what I was serving, but by cracky,
Campbell, what do you make of this? This doesn't quite seem government process.
Well, I actually have a different view, Andrew, and firstly I have to declare up front that I'm a personal friend of the Chief Executive, but by the way, I haven't ever spoken to her about it, nor lobbied Malcolm Turnbull anyway, so I had nothing to do or no knowledge of them getting the money. But I say good luck to them, and this is the background. This foundation's been around for almost 20 years. As you said, it raised about $90 million. It funds research into the reef. So it's about finding solutions, about deploying money economically to get the work done. Major Australian corporates, yes, from the evil fossil fuel industry, and I would have thought you two would both support people who actually produce fossil fuels so we can live our lives, but they've been supporting it for a long period of time. I also make the point that it's had bipartisan support. The Gillard government gave them over $10 million when they were in office. I'm pretty sure the Bligh government...
That's a long way from $500 million, though. $10 million to $450 million.
Well, let's get to the need then in a sec. But this is the politics side of it first. I mean, it's had bipartisan support. It's been very important in Queensland. It's a very well-respected organisation that is doing really good stuff. In contrast to, frankly, Rita and Andrew, green groups who, in my view, simply want to use the reef as a political issue to try and get membership fees and the like. I'd really urge you to have a good look at this organisation.
Campbell,
I'm across the activist groups who put out junk research. That's fine. But you can't just be handing out almost $500 million over a lunch without a proper tender process, without other government officials in the meeting. It just doesn't look right.
Well, that's for Malcolm Turnbull. That's for Malcolm Turnbull to deal with. But let's just deal with the organisation. Because any suggestion the organisation...
We're not disparaging the organisation. Nobody has disparaged the organisation other than the size of it.
Well, hang on. Well, Rita, let's just deal then with the need. The Great Barrier Reef is under threat. And whether you believe in climate change or not, it's under threat from things like runoff from coastal catchments, nutrients from wastewater treatment plants, and also from agriculture, which leads to crown of thorn starfish outbreaks, which are really hurting the reef.
I'm right on top of that. You are quite right. It's under threat.
But the work needs to be done. So would you prefer $500 million to be spent by the government, to be controlled by public servants? I think the Prime Minister's seen an opportunity here to deploy money quickly, efficiently, getting it to where it's needed. And that's why I support it.
OK, Campbell, well, you and me, we got to set up a little company, mate, and go to lunch with Malcolm and see whether we can shake out $400 million over lunch.
If that sort of money's around for good deeds, and I can think of plenty of good things we should pursue, perhaps we could.
Yeah, but the song actually goes, "Good deeds done cheap." This was not cheap. Listen very quickly, Emma Husser.
I'd urge both of you, though, you've got to look at what's going on here. There's Keneally running a political line. Is the reef something she wants to fix, or does she want to play politics? Similarly with the Green groups, do they want to fix the problems of the reef for all Australians, or do they want to whinge and carp and actually go, ooh, scary music, you know, there's some terrible thing happening?
Even a broken clock is right a couple of times a day. You can't just be...
It's the process here. It's the process here, Campbell. I know they're putting agendas on it, and I haven't raised those. It's the process here. Just very quickly, we've only got 2 minutes. The by-election result in Longman, Rita, why is this so panicked, the Liberals?
Well, because I think they were expecting at least one run on the board, if not two, and to walk away not winning either seat, but also to have such poor result. I think they should be scared, because if those results are replicated throughout Queensland, that swing, it is going to be a disaster. And, you know, maybe they're finally waking up from their stupor.
Look, I think that's right. But, Campbell, what did you make of it?
Well, my big take-home is this issue about where the votes are disappearing from, and it's the 50-plus demographic. Particularly a booth I'll quickly reference is called Banksia Beach, which covers an area which is very well-to-do compared to the rest of the electorate. And you know what the swing on primary was against the LNP? It was 10.3%. So they went for around about a 50% primary to under 40%. That's because people are cranky with raids on superannuation for self-funded retirees, a high-taxing, high-spending, Labor-like government that for example, is signing up to international protocols to affect our immigration policy. It's all that sort of stuff. I was at a function at City Hall today talking to former Liberal councillors, senior councillors, and they were saying their spouses weren't going to vote Liberal because of those issues. It's a real issue.
Campbell,
that's where the vote's gone, yeah.
Rita, you've been saying this all along. We've only got 5 seconds, but you've been saying all so long. This is what you get when a Liberal government turns to the
That's it.
left.
The Liberal government abandoned their base, and the base has now abandoned them.
There's a poetry in that asymmetry. Rita Panahi and Campbell Newman, thank you so much for your time.
Andrew.